We wanted to just do a short creating space today to introduce folks who might not have already seen the person who has been behind the scenes for a lot of the posts and a lot of the things that have been happening on our socials, which is Ashley. And so Ashley is, I'm going to let you introduce yourself, Ashley, to tell us a little bit about you and how you're connected with us.
Yes. So I'm an AmeriCorps VISTA Summer Associate for this summer, working with Community Tampa Bay. I started about 2 or so weeks ago, and I'll be here for the entire duration of the summer.
Yes! So what's amazing is that we've had Ashley just come on board and hit the ground running right from the get with all the virtual programming and literally kind of navigating this very, very strange time where your first day on the job is remotely and all those things. So Ashley, I wanted to kind of just spend a couple minutes talking about what was your experience like as a VISTA and navigating kind of work-life balance and different things like that, especially during this time, starting from from a remote position and navigating kind of multiple jobs and things like that.
It was a very big learning curve, having to navigate working, like transitioning from an in-person position and basically translating it to being completely online. So it was a really big learning curve for me, having to basically readjust myself in the way I work in an office space or just in a space with other people, and having to have that same connections, but just digitally, and maintaining those important guidelines for safety. And in addition to that, also working part-time, so making sure that I allocate enough time to be fully available and fully involved with CTB and everything that's going on throughout the week, while also trying to maintain my part-time position and not dropping the ball on that as well. So all in all, it was a really big learning curve. I've never used Zoom before until my position. This is my first Instagram live event. So it's been really enlightening, kind of getting to see more about my boundaries, as well as knowing how capable I am in juggling a lot of different things, as well as knowing where my limit is and when I have to say, okay, I'll just have to take a step back.
And I love how you bring up the concept of boundaries and again, based on your comfort in answering this and how much you want to answer in terms of boundaries, but what has that been like, sort of navigating, especially since we are doing work in ending all forms of discrimination, but engaging in a lot of difficult conversations. A lot of it is virtually. A lot of it is sort of like jumping in immediately with a lot of conversations without necessarily sometimes having that time to build a foundation of maybe like a sense of like, okay, like, do I know where this person is coming from? Even between us, like in terms of like, oh my gosh, like Masa said this thing, like, what does that mean? And, I'm sure that there's a lot to navigate there. What has that been like, navigating and exploring your boundaries and how to be in this position, jumping into things like our virtual community circles and our Let's Talk About Racism workshops?
A big thing for me with this position is knowing when I need to disconnect. So I am home, working from home. So sometimes after programming events, when I feel a little either drained or overwhelmed, there's moments where I just need to take a step back, disconnect, either take my dog out for a walk or just take a walk around the house or just sit outside in the patio in the back and just like take a couple of minutes, just decompress. I'm a very introverted individual, so even though a lot of our or all of our programs are over Zoom, it's still very draining as if I'm conversing with people in this physical space. And because I do have to put a lot of myself out there, and I feel like even more so because it is virtually, and there can be some sort of disconnect of statements and meanings over Zoom than there can be in person. Um, and I want to put my full self in this position and to be able to be a part of the community. And so for me personally, I feel like in order to do that, I have to put my full self out there, which is very draining. So a lot of times, in order to establish those boundaries, I would have to tell myself, okay, you're going to do this event, take a couple minutes beforehand to just grab a drink of water, relax, or even, if I were to go full force into the event, afterwards, just take a step back from the computer, go talk to, my family or whomever, and just kind of disconnect and decompress in order for me to kind of regain that energy back again.
I think I appreciate you saying that, because I think like that's one of the things that sometimes gets lost in kind of thinking like, oh, like this is there's a lot of misconceptions around this work, and saying like, oh, of course, like you care about this work, so therefore since you care about it, you should want to do it all the time, and in some cases do it for free, and and like the sense of entitlement to sort of your full authentic self, kind of a sense, right? Like other people's sense of entitlement to you bringing yourself, when in fact that is actually draining. So I really appreciate you bringing up that point, because we do need to create spaces for each other to decompress and make sure that we are not demanding of each other something that should not be demanded, something that we are not entitled to. So what has been what has been sort of the takeaways, both in terms of your own boundary setting, I think you've talked a little bit about, but then also like learning and growth during this time? Because I know you said that there's been a steep learning curve, or a very it's a very quick turnaround.
So in terms of boundaries, I do work a part-time job, and I do try to please everyone, which is a really bad trait of mine. So with this, and this is also another learning process as well, is putting my foot down and learning when to say no. So when I were to speak to my manager, setting up for myself and saying, hey, this is the only times I'm available. Unfortunately, I can't do more than this. Which has been really important for me because I'm a really big people pleaser, and I try to do as much as I can in order to make sure everyone else is okay. Sometimes forgetting that I'm only one person and I can only do so much. In terms of my position as an AmeriCorps Vista, I think one of the biggest learning curves has been facilitating and establishing a community over Zoom. I've really enjoyed my time being involved with Virtual Community Circle, with creating space, with Let's Talk About Racism, because I see the community that's being established within those spaces, and seeing people be completely vulnerable as much as they feel comfortable with, which has been really eye-opening for me. So I think, yeah, one of the biggest takeaways is learning to establish a sense of community, regardless of if you're in person or online. Because I think having that sense of community is very important for people to really be receptive and to be open and to, the uncomfortable.
Absolutely. And I think we were just joking about how like, oh my gosh, like even in our virtual community circle, how it's like avatar, like connecting on avatar and things like that. So it's like, what? So there's definitely I just wanted to definitely highlight our amazing AmeriCorps Vista, Ashley. Thank you so much for everything that you're doing. Thank you so much for, even when it's draining, to bring yourself to these spaces. And like, you're a boss human. And so we're so lucky to have you as part of our team this summer. Any final thoughts or things that you want to share, or if you have anything to plug, if you want to plug anything?
Stay tuned for a lot of great programs that we have coming up. Virtual Community Circle. Let's Talk About Racism coming up on Monday, creating spaces. I'm also working behind the scenes for our PCS Youth for Unity Walk with local community high school students, which will be really, really, really exciting. So I'm super excited for that and getting to work with our younger humans into facilitating them into becoming better leaders in their communities.
Awesome. Yes. So definitely stay tuned for some more information on that. I think we'll put out some information on that at some point once we're at a point where we can, I guess, more publicly publicize that. But it is an amazing thing that Sam and Ashley are both working hard on, and they're going to be facilitating four different sessions of a leadership conference, Youth for Unity Leadership Conference, and it's going to be like, it's boss. It's going to be boss. All right. Thank you so much, Ashley. And for everybody else, we will post in the comments or in the chat at some point the link for doing surveys. We very much appreciate anybody doing a survey who has ever watched any of these creating spaces or any of our virtual programming. Your feedback really helps us to do this better, and to also have some data that we can use for future programming endeavors. So thank you all very much, and have a great rest of your Thursday afternoon. Take care, y'all. Bye, Ashley.
Bye.